Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the First Brick Property Buyers Podcast. My name is KM. I'm the director of the First Brick Property Buyers Agency. The purpose of this podcast is to bring a casual style show to discuss all things property, with education being the key. Our episodes will range from discussing a variety of topics and having special guests who can share their insights into the property world. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned investor, this podcast will be able to further your knowledge and really remove any barriers to getting involved in the exciting and fun world of property. Today I have a very special guest who is also a personal friend of mine. He is an ex-teacher, and we'll get into that in a little bit. He's an acrobatic flyer, I think that's what you call it. I'm not too sure, a little bit of stalking to figure out what that was, but we'll get into it as well. He's a solicitor, currently working for one of the top firms in Sydney's CBD, Ciappara Lawyers, specializing in property and strata law, where he leads the property team. He takes a pragmatic approach in helping his clients achieve the best possible outcome to ensuring his clients' best interest is of utmost importance. He is, of course, one of the top solicitors in this country, Solon Hu. How are you, mate? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for this. Thanks for arranging this, and very happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Acrobatic flying, is that correct? Is that a thing?
Perhaps that might be something I'll be getting into.
Yeah.
I discovered that about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. What is it? I don't. Is that when you do tricks and stuff in the plane?
Pretty much. So I just jumped on a plane.
Yeah.
Someone was driving it.
Yeah.
And basically it was meant to be this acrobatic thing where do loops, upside down, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And he starts off going very gently just to test you out. But I was like, after a few loops, I was like, stuff it, just keep going. Just go hard, go all out.
Yeah.
So the last 5 minutes, it was just like loops, 360s.
That's crazy. So you're not flying it yourself?
No, I wish I could.
Not yet?
Not yet. Perhaps it might be something that I would get into.
Yeah, that's cool. You're an ex-teacher?
Yes. So I used to be a high school teacher.
Yeah.
I majored in English and history.
Yeah.
Taught at an all-boys school, taught at an all-girls school. Did tutoring, did a lot of tutoring when, as soon as I finished high school. So I taught primary school kids, high school kids for I think at least 7 years or something.
Wow. 7 years of teaching.
Yeah.
And then you moved into law.
Yeah. So basically after uni, I went to high school teaching, right? And I just felt like I was another kid teaching another kid. So I didn't feel like I had enough life experience.
Yeah.
So I thought, I need to do something a bit more with myself.
Yeah.
Learn a bit more about the world, and then hopefully maybe one day when I retire, I'll go back to teaching.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is that still the plan to go back to teaching?
It is very rewarding.
Yeah.
So it's still at the back of my mind. So it is something, unless something drastically changes, going back to teaching will be kind of like the last bit of, last couple of years of my professional life kind of thing.
Well, I think I can, from our interactions professionally, because we obviously do a bit of work together, I can see the teaching experience coming through, because a lot of the feedback I get that I don't pass on to you, but a lot of the feedback that I get when customers of mine have used you, they say great communication, and that's probably the main thing that they want from their solicitor is they want to know what's going on, they want to be kept up to date, and so maybe that's the teaching experience coming through.
I really think that's the case, because I guess making sure they understand it is sometimes I got to teach them that, and I got to maybe explain it in a couple of different ways, and I guess part of that is the skills that I learned from teaching. Yeah.
Okay, so you were a teacher for 7 years when you moved to the law world, and you became a solicitor, and you specialize in property and strata law. Why? Well, why property? I mean, if I was a solicitor, just from TV shows, I feel like I want to be doing the crazy stuff. Property is not that crazy.
That's exactly true. Property itself isn't that crazy, but the things surrounding property can be quite crazy. Yeah. I guess why I got into property is a couple of things. Both my parents were real estate agents. Yeah. From, I think my mom was ran her own real estate agent back in Hong Kong. Okay. So did my dad. Yeah. So I guess I always had a bit of a property background. Yeah. And also my first real gig as a solicitor was all mostly to do with property work. Yeah. And then I could see from there it branched out into so many things. Yeah. So property work is one thing, but it branches out into so many other things.
Okay. So you specialize in property and strata law, and at the moment you are leading a team at your firm, at the firm you work at.
That's right. So
what's your role there?
So basically my role there is to kind of fill in the gap which they didn't have. So the firm that I'm working for, they specialize in strata law. They specialize in building defect litigations and all other kinds of litigation as well.
Yeah.
So because of that, they know that they got this bit of a gap in the property skills.
Yeah.
So that's where I come in. So I look after all the conveyancing, all the commercial work, as well as helping out with the strata work as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. And anyone listening is probably able to guess what today's discussion is going to be about. But before we get into it, I always like to ask my guests some get to know you questions. A little bit of fun.
Sounds good.
So there's a couple questions just to see, so the listeners can get a feel for you. Make sure they trust you before they take some property advice. I guess what's your favorite way? Maybe we've already touched on it. What's your favorite way to spend your day off?
To spend my day off, I actually want to do things.
Yeah.
So I want to, and not just do things, but also do it with people.
Yeah.
So I really like hanging out with my friends, doing things with them, it could be something like chilling at their house or going out shopping or like just basically just with people. Like,
just being around your mates.
Yeah, I just can't really...
Acrobatic flying.
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah.
I watch them get sick afterward as well.
Have you taken any of your friends acrobatic flying?
No, not yet. I think some of them are too scared to.
Yeah.
I show them photos.
Have you gone skydiving?
Yes, I have.
Is it fun?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Some of my mates just went skydiving recently and it looked really cool. They loved it.
Did they enjoyed it?
Yeah. They all said they'd do it again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I'll do it again, but I would definitely recommend doing it.
Yeah. We'll have to try it one time.
Yeah.
I'll jump out of a plane that you're flying. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, we've got international lockdowns and whatnot at the moment. In a non-COVID world, what's your next travel destination?
It will most likely be either Japan or New Zealand.
Yeah. How come?
I've been to both of them.
Yeah.
Japan is just one of those places where you got to go many times. There's just so much going on there.
Too much to do.
You just got to go back multiple times.
Yeah.
New Zealand, I went there, but I didn't go to the good part of New Zealand. Yeah. So I really want to go back there.
What was the bad part of New Zealand?
Oh, no, I went there for a purpose.
We do have a couple of New Zealand listeners, so just watch out what you say.
No, just I went there for a very particular reason.
Yeah.
Dodgeball competition.
Okay.
So I didn't get time to explore. That's why.
Dodgeball competition.
Yeah.
Were you participating?
Yeah. So we were, basically it's a international one, right? So different countries come in and play.
Yeah.
We had Malaysia, we had Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia.
And you were representing Australia. Yeah. This is all new information. I don't know any of this stuff. This is very interesting. Yeah. Dodgeball competition. Fair enough. So do you have to do some bicep curls so you can throw the ball?
Oh, everything. It's a whole body thing, man.
Yeah.
It's not just the arm. It's like your legs, your core, your chest, arms.
Did you guys win?
No, we didn't win. There was a lot of good teams there.
Yeah.
It was actually my first time doing that comp.
Okay.
So it's more for getting some experience.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the next year or two, that's when we win some.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's different. I've never heard of dodgeball competition in my life.
Should give it a go.
Now we know. What was the last TV show you binged?
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory.
Oh.
It's an oldie.
It's an oldie, but I didn't realize that there's so many seasons to it.
Yeah.
So when I think I've only watched the first 5 seasons. And then when I got back to it, I realized there was 12 seasons. So I
12 seasons?
Yeah. So I binged it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. I think the last thing I binged, it was only 9 episodes. It was the Tottenham Jose Mourinho documentary on Amazon Prime.
Oh,
the soccer documentary.
All right.
I usually just watch soccer documentaries.
Wow.
The show before that I binged was called Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix.
What's that about?
So Sunderland's a football club in England, and they get relegated a couple of times, and it's just a documentary following the story of Sunderland and behind the scenes stuff. But I think if you're not a soccer fan, you still enjoy it. Because so there's one about Manchester City, and there was one about Tottenham, and they're quite successful clubs. So it's more about how the club works in the background.
Yeah.
And if you're not into soccer, you probably don't care. But with Sunderland, because they're so bad and they just keep losing, and the story gets worse and worse. There's 2 seasons. The drama it's next level. Like, even if you don't care about soccer, it's like you get really sucked into it.
Wow.
I care about soccer, so maybe I got sucked into it more than others, but I would recommend.
Do you think it's sensationalized a little bit, or?
With Sunderland? I don't think so. It was just they were just really bad. They just kept getting worse and worse. With the Manchester City and Tottenham, I think it was a little bit, dramatized.
Okay.
But I like to see the way the clubs work in the background, which is cool. Wow. But the Sunderland one, I give it a go.
Is that on Netflix?
It's on Netflix. Yeah.
Sunderland.
It's got 2 seasons.
Send me the link after this.
We'll do. People listening to this are like, we don't care. Just get into the property stuff. So let's get into it. So with every property purchase, the solicitor is very pivotal. He has a very pivotal role, very crucial. He or she, sorry. And the solicitor does a lot of the background work, making sure all the ducks are in line. But a lot of people don't know what's going on in the background. So between finding the property and then settlement, there's a lot of things that you guys do as solicitors. So I thought today, since you had the chance to come in, I thought let's discuss the solicitor's role in the process of property purchasing, what's going on in the background, and just try and educate people about that process. So I guess first question is, what does a solicitor do, or what do you do once someone's found the property?
So the main thing, let me try to conceptualize this rather than going into the little steps.
Yeah.
Basically, my main priority is to make sure that you understand, the buyers understand what they're actually buying and what are the contractual terms which they are entering into. One very major thing which I do is making sure that they understanding what they are looking to buy and making sure that the property that they're buying meets those needs. Yeah. So not so much from a qualitative perspective, but more from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
So for example, if someone's buying a property for the purpose of ensuring that they get these stamp duty benefits, I make sure check their background, check the contract, check the property. Can they get that?
Yeah.
That's an example. If someone wants a property for investment purposes, or they want a tenant there, I make sure are they happy with the property? Are they happy with the current tenancy agreement that's inside of it? So just making sure that the property and what the person is buying the property for, that's at least
they link up.
They link up. That's right. Because you don't want someone buying something which they did not intend to.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so speaking about that, I mean, making sure they link up and whatnot. What are some specific things that you look for when carrying out your role, I guess? Is it something specific that you're looking for? Is it just a general overview of the contracts? Or, I guess, is it specific, I guess?
So think of it as a 2-layer approach. Yeah. So when a person finds a property which they want to buy, they send the contract over to us. My job is to review the contract and then explain it to them. Yeah. What's in this contract. So there'll be the general stuff that I tend to look for in the contract. Number one, making sure the contract is properly put together. Yeah. Because if a document is missing, there's crucial information is missing, and number two, the contract is not valid.
Yeah.
Because with the whole contract, if certain documents are missing, basically the buyer can say at any time they want to pull out of the deal.
Yeah.
So, we got to make sure that...
Is there a specific document that you're referring to, or just...
Pretty much all of it. Title searches need to be there, the plans need to be there, the council certificate, the water stuff, everything.
So the sellers need to be providing every single thing, or else it's...
invalid.
Not valid,
That's right. Okay. And also the dates of the document. Sometimes they might give us a document that's 2 years old. And we're like, no, we can't rely on this. We've got to get an updated one. So the first one is I look for the very standard stuff. Then while I'm reviewing the contract with the purchaser, they would tell me as we go through the contract what changes that they want to make in the contract.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of 2-layer approach, what I think is needed and what they think is needed, and we put it together.
Yeah. And so, I mean, do you find, for example, I purchased a property and I came to you and I didn't want to pay a 10% deposit after cooling off period. I only wanted to pay 5% for whatever reason. So these things that I want that are not needed, do you find it's easy going with the other party solicitors usually, or do you find there's headaches? I always, because whenever I think of solicitor works, I just assume like constant arguments. But I assume it's like I assume my assumption is wrong. That you're not constantly arguing, or else you'd have a headache all the time.
I think what you believe is actually kind of true.
Yeah.
So with the Australian legal system, like solicitors are generally it's an adversarial system.
Yeah.
You know, I act for the buyer. I act for their best interest.
Yeah.
And then the other solicitor acts for the vendor's best interest.
Yeah.
And quite often,
obviously they clash.
It clash.
Yeah.
So it can become very adversarial in a way where there's a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Sometimes, say for example, well, I guess everything's up for negotiation. So like when you want a deposit for 5% deposit and you don't want to pay more than that,
yeah,
it comes down to the market condition, whether you have the bargaining power. So right now, it's quite common to get a 5% to proceed on a 5% deposit.
Yeah.
Whereas a couple of years back, that was almost unheard of.
Yeah, that's right. It was 10% or nothing.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So how do you get past? So it's just, whoever wants it more is going to let go of something, I guess.
Exactly.
Just like a normal negotiation on purchase price, etc. Yeah, fair enough. What about, so when you're looking at a contract, because I always wanted to ask you this actually. Yeah, towards the end of the contract, there's all the drawings and all that stuff that they include, and only really one of those pages is important in my mind, because I'm only looking at the one with the property on it, the lot. Whatever the lot is, and because I'm just looking at the easements and whatnot. And then there's like another 20 pages, and most of them are not eligible. Like you can't read them. Not they're not eligible. Like the transcript is so poor. What is the purpose of those? Like, are you looking at those as well? Or?
So there's in a contract, right? So there's a number of disclosure which the vendor needs to make in order for the contract to be made, right? And some of those documents may not apply to that land specifically. You can be buying one particular land, but the documents that we order comes with a lot of other things. Okay. So it may not be necessarily applicable to that specific land that the buyer wants to buy.
Yeah.
You mentioned easements and covenants. You can actually, so for example, you're buying lot number 1.
Yeah.
And there's 2 easements affecting it. The documents that we order could show up to 10 easements that affect not just that land, but a number of other lands nearby.
Yeah.
We don't need to look at all of them. We just got to look at specifically the 2 that's affecting that property.
Okay, fair enough. You mentioned covenant. Can you explain what that is?
Okay, covenant is the best way to look at this is actually look at a few things.
Yeah.
Easements and covenants.
Yeah.
Easements give another person the right to use your land.
Yeah.
A typical example would be like a shared driveway.
Yeah.
Whenever the driveway is being used, the other owner is using a bit of your land. Covenant prevents you from doing something. So it prevents the owner from doing something. And the one of the weirdest one I've seen so far is there's a covenant which prevents the lot owner from setting up I think it's a milk stand or lemonade stand outside on the property or something. So basically they're just things that's preventing you from doing something. That was a very old one. That was that was dated back in in the 1800s or something.
And so the covenants are in place, have been put in place through council usually, or
it could so a lot of ones are from council. So for example, when the previous developer subdivided the land, they got to get council approval, and as part of the condition there are these covenants, there are these easements like that.
Okay. So your easements are saying what you who can go onto your property, and the covenant saying what you can't do. Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, cool. Since we're talking about this between this, what are the differences? What's the difference between a conveyancer and a solicitor?
I actually get asked that a lot.
Yeah.
So this is where I got to tread lightly, carefully.
Don't hurt anyone's feelings here.
Nah. Well, the main difference, actually, let's look at the similarities.
Yeah.
Okay. They both can do the exact same thing. So think of a conveyancer as all they can do is property work.
Yeah.
Transferring the title from one person to another person, your standard purchase and sale. Solicitors do the same thing, but they can also do more. Conveyancers are limited by this jurisdiction that they are, that they're working in. So a conveyancer in New South Wales can only deal with properties in New South Wales. They can't deal with properties in Queensland, Victoria, etc. Whereas a solicitor, they can. They can deal with like all conveyancing work throughout the country, and they're also legally trained. So solicitors, they're better off at, interpreting the contract. They're better off at dealing with more complex transactions, for example.
Yeah.
But rather than looking at which one you should use, a conveyancer or a solicitor, I always think that the person you should choose is who's going to look after you.
Yeah.
You don't want either a conveyancer or solicitor who's doing so many of these large volumes of work where they won't look after you.
Yeah.
That's, they both can do the same thing, but you just want to find one who will look after you.
Okay. You touched on a question that I had prepared to ask you a little bit later, so I might just ask you now. When someone is looking to find a solicitor or a conveyancer, how does someone go about choosing the right solicitor? Or how do they know they are the right solicitor for them? What questions should they be asking to find out, is Solon the right solicitor for me?
I think one of the first things you should find out is whether property work is something that they do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You can have a criminal lawyer who specializes in criminal work and sometimes do a little bit of conveyancing work on the side, But then when you bring forward like a more complex transaction, it might be more difficult for them.
Yeah.
So I guess knowing that whether that's something they do on a regular basis is quite important. Number two, what you want to try to find out is see how you get along with them. Are they willing to help you? Are they willing to give you, are they willing to help you without, almost without them really asking, without you asking for it?
Yeah.
Because if they truly want to help you, they want to make sure you get the best deal, or at least not to get screwed over by certain things.
Yeah. Okay. So just asking some questions, digging deep to find out the experience in the property world, essentially, and getting the vibe.
That's right.
If they want to help or not.
That's right. Oh, and maybe ask them who's looking after the file. Is it just them, or is it a team of people? So that it sets the expectation.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think that the solicitor is looking after the whole thing.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the solicitor will normally look after the most important part, and then keep an eye out, making sure the rest of it goes according to the timeline.
Okay. That's some good questions to ask. At what point in the process should a solicitor be engaged? And from both buying and selling point of view.
I think from a selling point of view, I think a solicitor should be best engaged when you're ready to sell, when you have the agent's detail ready, whoever you're using to sell the property.
Yeah.
Because the agent can't start marketing the property until there's a contract.
Yeah.
So once you've decided who you're going to use as your agent, contact the solicitor, make the contract, so then the agent can begin the marketing process.
Yeah.
From a buyer, if you're a first-home buyer, I'll say first person, find a solicitor.
Yeah.
At least they can give you a rundown on what to expect.
Yeah.
I've got some stories later.
Yeah.
Why? But ideally, if you're a first-home buyer, find a solicitor first. Get to know the procedure, know what to expect, know the rules.
Yeah.
But if you're a seasoned investor, when you find a property, when you have a contract, then find a solicitor.
Yeah. Okay. You were talking about the first-time buyers just there. Are the solicitors the people aiding in getting the grants and stamp duty exemptions and stuff across the line, or is that from the bank broker's point of view? Who's doing that role?
So normally, the solicitor will deal with the stamp duty exemptions or concessions.
Yeah.
Okay, because the solicitor will deal with the stamping requirement. The grant, on the other hand, the first homeowner grant, for example, that is actually best done by the broker or the banker, because if they do it, the buyer can get that grant early on.
Yeah.
Whereas if the bank or broker doesn't do it and the solicitor applies for it, we still can.
It's got to happen at the end.
It's got to happen at the end and later.
Yeah.
Because we need evidence of the buyer living in there. So, for example, like utility bills. So they got to get those first before we can make that application.
Okay.
I think something about an authorized, there's a requirement, and a solicitor is not one of the people who can do it before then.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. not too many more questions to go, but I do have one question that I would like you to explain, because I get a lot of people that call me and say, hey, just received an invoice. And it's what I was expecting, but there's also all these things called disbursements. What are these disbursements? And I always struggle to explain what disbursements are. So can you explain what disbursements are?
Okay. In a nutshell, disbursements are third-party costs which the solicitor has to pay first, and then the buyers and then their clients reimburse them.
Yeah.
The number of disbursements and the costs will vary.
Yeah.
Because you never know exactly how many of these disbursements how many orders and how many documents you got to order in the end. Let's take the seller's perspective, okay, acting for the seller.
Yeah.
An example of disbursements would be the documents required to create the contract. If I'm preparing a contract for one piece of land, easy. The disbursements are usually quite low. But if I'm preparing a contract for a 20-level high-rise, then there'll be more disbursements because I got to order any changes to the bylaws. I got to order the plans, and the plan's not just for that level; it's for the entire building.
Yeah.
So, in some cases, selling an apartment can cost more than selling a land in terms of disbursements.
Yeah.
If you're a buyer, some disbursements are, for example, like some of the set disbursements that or searches that the solicitor got to do is ordering the council certificate, the water certificate, the strata certificates, making sure that what are the rates, making sure what's been paid, so that the buyer doesn't get hit with the previous owner's debt because, council is not going to chase the previous owner. So that's some of the set ones. However, sometimes depending on which lender the buyer chooses to go with, the lender might have additional requirements like, we need a company search on the developer. We got to order that.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bank is like, we need a title. We need a more updated title search, not the one of the contract. We want one more recent. We got to order that.
Yeah.
So those were more common with like smaller lenders. Okay. If you go with like say CBA, Westpac, and all that, they don't need any of those.
Yeah.
Or very rarely do they need it.
Yeah.
So you see how disbursement, it's hard to gauge what's needed, but it's one of those things where if your lender needs it, we better give it. Otherwise, you're not getting the loan.
Yeah. And so who are you ordering these searches from?
The government. Directly, yeah.
And they're quick to respond?
So a lot of these, they come straight away because it's all electronic.
Okay.
So you just order it and within 5 minutes, it will come in.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Settlement day. Now, a lot's happening on settlement day. For everyone, from a seller's point of view, from the buyer's point of view, the buyers are excited, sellers are excited, real estate's excited because he's going to get paid soon, buyers are excited because he's just got another job done, happy days for everyone. What's going on in the solicitor's world on settlement day?
Oh, these days, it's actually a lot better now, these days. Previously, we got to run out with documents in our hand. Bank checks on the other hand. Go to a room and with like 50 other people, everyone's screaming at each other and I'm throwing paper and I'm throwing checks and I'm receiving it, I'm giving it over there. That's what used to happen. Yeah. Now it all happens, the same thing, but online. Yeah. So it's actually a lot easier with the whole online process because all those things we prepare it in advance so that on settlement, it just happens. Yeah. Like the PEXA platform, documents are created in there. The funds are linked to specific accounts and it all just happens. So it's actually a lot better now.
So PEXA is quite new. I mean,
within the last couple of years, that's when it really started taking off. And it's been a major change in the industry. Yeah. So through PEXA settlement day, you're essentially uploading your documents.
They're uploading, the sellers are uploading their documents, and then it's just a transfer of documents, essentially.
That's right. Yeah, it's a lot easier now.
I'm really interested in the old style, in the old school method. I'm interested in these stories. So you're rocking up to a room, and you've got your contracts in hand and a bunch of other documents.
Not so much contracts, but like the transfer documents, the title search, bunch of those things.
So some documents, and then you got a big check in your hand.
Yes.
If you're the buyer, or if you're representing the buyer, and then you go into a room, and who's in this room? So you said there's a few people in the room. Who's in the room?
All right. So there's so there's the banks.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say a typical scenario, right? Each settlement. Normally, we have a representative from the buyer.
Yeah.
We have a representative from the buyer's bank.
Yeah.
We have a representative from the seller.
Yeah.
We have a representative of the seller's bank.
Okay.
So each settlement usually involves these four parties.
Yeah, at a minimum.
At a minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, however, so at a very minimum, at a more complex one, we might have a seller that has two solicitors acting for them, if it's a family proceeding. Yeah. So then there's two other solicitors. So you have each settlement, you have four of them, right? And there could be many other settlements happening at the same time. There could be about like 50 happening at that one time.
Yeah.
And there could be one every like couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So imagine a room packed with all these people.
Where's this room that you guys are meeting up at?
So previously, like the more common ones are like, Scott Ashwood or SAI Global.
Yeah.
Or like one of the NAB buildings where they've actually have a set room just for settlement.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's all in the city. In the CBD, yeah.
So you travel into the city, you go into this room full of a million people doing a million things, and you're trying to locate the other party.
Yeah, you got to scream. You got to scream out. You got to yell at the law firm, say like, "Where are you?"
Yeah.
And then you got to go find them. You find a table. You swap documents. You go find your bank. They find their bank. You come back again. Yeah.
And how long did that process take once you got into the room?
It can take anywhere between 5 minutes.
Yeah.
To 2-3 hours.
So the ones that are taking 2-3 hours, what's going on? Why they taking?
There could be an error on the document that was prepared, so the error needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
There could be a printing error on the check from the bank, so the bank needs to collect the check, go back, reprint it, come back, and hopefully it's within the time frame. So there's basically due to errors.
Okay, and so if you're on the seller's point of view, and you've just sold the property and you're in this room, and the buyer solicitor has just handed a check.
Yep.
What does that seller's? What happens there from the seller's point of view with that check?
They bank it in.
They just give it to the banker guy, and they cash it in, and then.
Yeah, normally the bank would collect the check. The bank would then put it in their account.
Yeah.
They pay off the previous owner's mortgage.
Yeah.
And then whatever left over gets transferred to the previous owner.
I got to ask, what's the biggest check you've held when going into one of these?
Oh, the biggest check?
Yeah.
I think it was about, $6.5 million.
Phew.
Yeah, that was a commercial building.
Were you not nervous?
Well,
$6.5 million. I'd be like walking with bodyguards, make sure no one touches me.
Well, the check was actually, I only got to hold the check for like maybe 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So the bank was there. So the bank guy brought the check in.
Yeah.
Gave it to me. I check it and then give it to the vendor's representative.
Yeah.
And then they check it and then they give it to the vendor's bank.
So for 10 seconds, sometime in your life, you had $6.5 million in your hand.
That's right.
How did you feel?
Oh, wow. I guess at that moment, I was just more worried whether this will go through.
Yeah, just make sure. Get the job done. You don't have time to think about it. I have another friend who is a solicitor that you know of, and he, I remember him telling me his like first big check, like over $1 million. And he's just like, he's like, I'm holding over $1 million in my hand. And I'm just standing in the middle of the city trying to find this place. And what if someone robs me and like...
That's screwed.
Yeah. Like, what happened? Yeah, it was... I would be very, very nervous.
Well, even if someone does rob him and take the check, they can't really do much.
Can't do much, but I guess you'd be a bit stressed still.
You would be, yes, you would be.
That's pretty much all the questions I had in terms of the process and what the role of the solicitor is. I mean, it is quite straightforward. Every property purchase needs the solicitor. You have to be there. I want to ask, you mentioned you had some stories.
Oh.
Some crazy stories. What's some crazy stuff that's happened?
I have to say, so with property work, it's not that crazy. So I don't hear that many crazy stories. I guess linking back to before, first home buyers, why they should find a solicitor first.
Yeah.
Recently, I think in the last 2 weeks, I had a client. They were buying, this is their first property that they're buying. They saw an agent over the weekend. They were told that, what you're signing is not the contract. Your solicitor will get the contract in a couple of days time, and then you start the process then. That's what I was told too by the buyer. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool, no problem. We'll wait for the contract. We sat back for like a day or two, waiting for the draft contract to be sent to us.
Yeah.
And next moment, we got an exchange contract. signed and dated. And I go to my client, hey, what's this?
Yeah.
Did you sign this?
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, we did. But the agent told us it's not the contract. Oh, but it is the contract.
Yeah.
Cooling off has started. You only got 2 days left in your cooling off period. That kind of thing. So like, sometimes dealing with these issues that come about.
Yeah.
That's not the craziest one, but like, this is kind of like a reason why first-time buyers should, get some very, very general advice from a solicitor, like, especially at the beginning, just to make sure they don't get, pulled around or stuff like that. Other stories, like not so much a property side, but it links to other things. Like, so with property work, it links with like probates. It links with family law proceedings. It links to litigation disputes. So it links to like, disputes with the banks. So you can see how property work seems normal, but then it also links to everything else.
Yeah, for sure.
Dealt with cases where people default in their loan payments, and then the bank is repossessing the property, and we have to quickly like get an injunction and deal with it, and try to salvage that property for them. Other examples are like family members fighting each other for a property, when someone has passed away. So dealing with those kind of things, like those are the kind of the crazy stuff that we get to see.
Yeah, fair enough. I do actually have one more question that came out of your story of your first time buyer. Just quickly, can you list the process or the order of what contract is being signed when?
Okay.
Just since you mentioned it.
All right. So signing. Okay. So what I tell
because people get very confused about this. Yeah.
Yes. It's actually quite flexible. Yeah. I would say it's actually quite flexible. What I normally tell my client is this: in an ideal world where there's no issues, no problems, what they should do is get the contract first.
Yeah.
Understand what's in the contract. That's after getting it reviewed with the solicitor. The solicitor will then request for amendments if needed. And then once they're happy, once the buyer is happy with the contract and happy with the property, like, after they do their due diligence, like building and pest report, and it comes back all good or okay, then they sign the contract.
Yeah.
Then they, that's when the process really begins.
Yeah. So signing that contract, though, you haven't exchanged yet. You're now entering cooling off period.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So then you have the cooling off period to really use that cooling off period to think, okay, do I really want to go ahead with this? Because that's generally what the cooling off period is for. Nowadays, like during, especially maybe 3 or 4 years ago when the property market was hot, you don't get the luxury of doing that. If you sit around and wait, someone else is going to buy it.
That's right.
So in a more commercial sense, in a more practical sense, you want, if you're a buyer and there's multiple buyers like looking at it, and people are throwing offers, and you really want that property, best thing to do, sign a contract, get it exchanged, pay the 0.25%.
Yeah.
But you got to make sure your solicitor is aware of that so they can start working on the file immediately, because you only get a standard 5 business day cooling off unless you've negotiated for a longer one. So once the contract is exchanged, it's locked in. Yeah. It's yours, provided you don't pull out during the cooling off period.
Yeah.
And you have that time to review the contract. You have that time to do your due diligence before the cooling off ends.
Yeah.
So there's 2 ways to go about it. So there's an ideal way, and then there's the
realistic way.
I'll say the more realistic way. However, it's kind of in between.
Yeah.
You would like to do part of the work before contract is exchanged, but then depending on the situation, you just have to bite the bullet. Yeah, you just got to bite the bullet, pay the 0.25, run the risk of losing that. At least that way you get to lock in that property.
Yeah.
Chances are usually there's not that many big problems with property, so it's generally fine.
So your cooling off period ends, and then you're paying your bigger deposit, whatever has been agreed on.
So just before the cooling off ends, you got to pay the rest of the deposit, whether it is the full 10% or the balance of the 5% deposit.
Yeah. And then it's a couple of weeks till settlement, whatever again has been agreed on. And then the big settlement day when you're running around in rooms and
not that anymore. No anymore. It's all PEXA now. I kind of missed that. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a bit crazy, but
not all properties are through PEXA, so you still
very rare.
Yeah,
very, very rare.
But I mean, I can imagine you especially being a property specialist, if you were running into the city on a constant basis into a room, how much time do you have to do any other work really?
So there's a service that we can use.
Yeah.
We get settlement agents. So there are actually people who do that.
Their job is to go in and yell.
Yeah, that's right. So they go in there and they yell for us.
Big bucks.
Yeah. So that's why that's why it comes in for disbursements as well, because rather than me running out there, I charge at least 380 plus GST per hour for my time.
Yeah.
So rather than the buyer paying me that amount of money for to go out and do settlement, we just engage the service of a settlement agent who will do it for us for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's disbursements.
Fair enough. Yeah, cool. Anything else you want to add? I think I've run out of questions.
No, pretty well. Look, I really would like to actually have another session maybe sometime soon, and we can go into further details about the contractual terms to look out for. Maybe some easements and covenants that people want to discuss about, like more detailed stuff. This is very general.
General, yeah.
And we can definitely go into more detail.
100%. Well, I think the purpose of today was just a very broad, general look, top view look of what does a solicitor do in the property purchasing process. And then, 100%, we'll definitely have you on again, and we'll get into some a deep dive into contracts and unpack some contracts and see what's going on. And
sounds good.
And then get some more crazy stories.
Looking forward to it.
There you have it, folks. So thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully this episode has shed some light into the solicitors' world of properties and settlement rooms and throwing documents at each other and checks worth a lot of money. So if you are purchasing a property or selling a property and you need to find a solicitor, Solon obviously does a great job. Solon, how can they find you?
So you can look me up on our website. Look up Ciappara Lawyers, or you can contact KM, and KM will just pass my details, and we'll go from there.
For sure, we'll get we'll get the website on as well in the show notes and in the advertisement, so they can find it. And if you get lost, just ask us, and we'll point you in the direction of Solon. And of course, you can contact us if you need anything from our end, and you can find all of our social media on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. Just search First Brick Property and it will come up. If you have any topics you'd like to discuss, send us a message at hello@firstbrick.com.au or shoot us a message on our social platforms. If you enjoyed the episode, we would love a review. And this helps us get up higher in the charts so more people can find us, so they can listen and they can learn. And also, it's always nice to get a review. It shows us that someone's listening. And if you want to give us some stars, preferably 5, we'll take them. So please leave your reviews, give us some 5 stars or 1 stars, whatever you feel like giving. Just give us a review. And don't forget to pass the pod. So we just ask, if you know one person that you think would enjoy this podcast, just let one person know, pass the pod on, and they can pass the pod on and we can become huge. And the purpose isn't to just get huge, it's so that more people can get educated. And so we can keep attracting great guests and keep getting them on and hearing about their dodgeball competitions and flying acrobatic planes and stuff. So thank you all. Thanks, Solon, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
See you again. And buying property is our passion. Helping you do it is our mission. See ya.